Welcome to the Humans of Hospitality podcast. I know so many of you listening to this show love your local bar, your local restaurant, maybe your local hotel, and have so many fond memories of time in hospitality businesses. This is the podcast where we get to chat to the human beings behind the scenes of that industry. Maybe the chefs or the bakers or the coffee roasters or the gin distillers or the craft brewers or the entrepreneurs, but all doing an amazing job of making sure that hospitality stays interesting and the big, dull, formulaic brands do not take over our high street. Please enjoy the show. In this week's conversation, I get to chat to Pete Joy from Bakehouse 24. Now, Pete's name has come up numerous times in conversation, and it was great to finally get to sit down and have a chat. And for someone who had no business plan but thought he'd be all right because there was a Waitrose just around the corner, Pete is doing pretty well. His love of mixing and kneading emerged out of the blue one night when his housemates were at a band practice. And having the place to himself, he decided not to do the normal thing, like maybe order a Chinese, but to bake a cake instead. And it turned out this wasn't a one-off. Pete soon developed a serious baking habit, which led to a 3 a.m. to midday job at a pioneering sourdough bakery under a Hackney railway arch. In this programme, you're going to hear how the man with no plan is successfully building a team of sourdough bakers, one of whom is also a potter, across his 2 sites in Dorset, and why he gets a little bit ranty on the topics of gluten intolerance and interpretations of the word sourdough. But by the end of the conversation, you too will be sympathising. I very much hope you enjoy this week's chat. Pete Joy, thank you so much for sparing the time for me to come and have a chat in your wonderful bakehouse.
It's quite all right.
Can you just explain to me, where are we on planet Earth?
We are in the office / changing / general dumping ground of Bakehouse 24 in Ringwood. It's our main bakery site where we've got a small little cafe, and then the whole production space where we make all of our bread and cakes and whatnot, really.
Perfect. I think it's come up numerous times now in this podcast that all of the money in the early days is dedicated to front of house. I was actually impressed when we came into your changing room / cupboard / office / store because it's huge compared to some. But yeah, I end up sat in some very weird places.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was tempted to put you in the dry store, but I thought that would be really odd.
I did one in a cellar. David Sachs was the wine cellar, which was lovely. It looked very grand, but it was freezing. It was like kept at about 9 degrees. So
I didn't hear you shivering on it.
No, but it kept it reasonably short. So no, this is great. So we're going to get into what you do now and a little bit of stuff around the industry, but I just want to start off with your history. So baking, when did this start? Tell me how you got into it.
Would have been, so I've been here for 3 years, my previous job for 6, about, I suppose, 10 years ago or so.
So how old are you then?
Oh, God, 23.
23
now,
okay.
Yeah, 23,
so,
yeah. So I just at home, really, doing it for myself.
Was this locally to here?
I know, I was living in London at the time with a couple of mates.
Okay. Was this the mates that were in the band?
Yeah.
Cool. I did hear about that.
Yeah, they were in a band, and
they were the cool ones.
Yeah, very much so. They go to band practice on a Tuesday or Wednesday evening, and I then end up having the house to myself. And one day I made a cake, which is just, I think about it and think it was a weird thing for me to do.
Had you shown any interest before that?
I enjoyed cooking, but I hadn't done any baking, and did that. And I think I phoned my mum up just to,
show off?
Yeah, just be like, you'll never guess what I've just done. And she didn't guess, obviously, but then realised that it was actually quite a wholesome thing for me to be doing. And
she could have been worried about it was girls or drugs or something.
Well,
no,
yeah,
what sort of cake was it?
All of those things.
Do you remember?
But she then bought me loads of books and equipment, and I just went from there. So every Wednesday night when my mates were at band practice, I'd do some baking. They'd come home half drunk, and I'd be like, right, I've made this, and they'd eat it, and that was that.
They must have loved you. Did you still have to pay rent, or did you just?
Yeah. I tried to avoid it, obviously, but so that was good. It was a good time just to learned what I was doing, and then
What were you studying at the time, or did you?
No,
have a
I was
job,
just
or?
working in a pub, having a good old time, to be honest.
Yeah,
and
nice.
and yeah, that was some wholesome activity, and that's what sort of.
That's quite unusual, isn't it, as a trajectory? Normally it's kind of like, I've done it since I was 6, I've been baking with Granny, but you just woke up one day and said, my mates are at band practice, instead of getting a Chinese,
it was absolutely awful as well. I saw a picture of it for the first time the other day, and wow, I was judging.
Yeah.
It was an odd thing to do for sure. But
did your mates, how did they respond?
Yeah, they were always pretty positive, and
that's good.
There are some successful things and some less successful things, and it just, I don't know, it just started something, I suppose.
So you then decided, right, I'm going to go out of the pub and get a job, is that?
Kind of, yeah. I through a friend of a friend, I got told about a chap who's starting a bakery in a railway arch in Hackney, and it just seemed a bizarre thing to do, like in a railway arch. I was like, really? I couldn't picture it, and I just went along. I wanted to see what it was, and he was amazing. He had loads of bowls of dough, and it was all fermenting and all sort of spilling out, and didn't look like he had much control of what was going on, but was just like, look, if you want to have a chat, stick this apron on and give me a hand. I'll direct you with what I need you to do. So
they'd just opened it at this point, hadn't they?
Yeah, it's just a small little bakery in a shared kitchen called E5 Bakehouse, and just went along and volunteered really, and for a couple of weeks, and weirdly he had done some filming with Michel Roux Jr. That aired on.
As you do.
Yeah. It was just for him, it was the right location and the right time, and this program aired, and it was only a little 5-minute clip, and the next day I think we sold out of bread by 10 o'clock, and it was at that point Ben had realised that it's about to get very busy, and I quit the pub and went and started working for him, and there's a group of, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 of us, and nobody had done any formal training, so it was all learning on the job, and everyone was super enthusiastic, and so it was just a case of
all of a sudden the band were the less cool. That sounds quite cool. A railway arch, baking cakes in Hackney. I would imagine you were bang on vogue, wouldn't you? Yeah,
I mean, Hackney wasn't quite the Hackney it is now, but it was certainly at that time when it was just changing, and it was a complete flip-flop on my life. Rather than getting in at 3 a.m, I was getting up at 3 a.m, and it took a little while to adjust. But it was amazing to be given that chance, and by someone who, how does he know if I could do any of what he was asking me to do? And he just gave me a go. And
amazing. So what was your actual job? Literally
making
bread.
sourdough bread in the bakery, and it was we sort of went from this very small shared kitchen when I first started there, and then when I left there 3.5 years ago, they now have 3 railway arches. They grow wheat in Sussex or Suffolk, one of the two. They mill it on site in Hackney.
Wow.
They have a very good ethos with everything they do. Work a lot with the Refugee Council. It's a very inspiring place, and it's a wonderful place to start.
That's amazing. So they went literally from nothing to that in 6 years.
Yeah, I guess. Ben's, when he started it, and I do bread making classes here, and some people do ask me how I started things, and I do tell them, and I find it interesting. And he started in his kitchen, and he would walk the bread to a pizza shop, bake it in their pizza oven, and then sell it door to door. Wow. And that was how he started. And you just think about that, you think, well, that's pretty darn impressive.
It is, yeah.
And I've always found that inspiring, and that he just gave it a go. So
nice.
Kind of one of the reasons why I thought, well, I should give it a go down here and see what happens.
We'll do the same. And if so, do you literally start work at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
That's what time you're in the bakery?
Yeah, the 3 of us. There's 3 of us baking today. We started at 3.
Really? That blows my mind. What time do you finish?
It depends. Some days midday. Some days I'll stay till 5 p.m.
Wow. This is why you're on your, is it 5 shots of coffee in the last 12 minutes or something? It's a Friday.
That was somewhat accidental, but yeah. Yeah.
I just this is the kind of the points of this podcast. When I train my my team and I do inductions, I often say, and it was one of the motivations for launching this podcast, because the people don't appreciate the work. But I always say, you know, we sell something as simple as a burger, and I'm kind of like, you just got to imagine how many people are involved. And I might have told this story on the podcast before, so I'll keep it short. But how many people are involved just in that one dish? And the one that I always refer to is the baker. I'm like, that baker. I think I've always said 4. I didn't realise it was 3. I've got even more admiration for you now.
It depends.
But you guys, you know, like, have you got kids or
No,
not yet? No. But there's bakers who like have never taken their kids to school because their dedication to their profession. That's the sacrifice they've made. Yet people just go out and buy a burger or a bread roll and think nothing of it. But behind that are you mental buggers doing your thing. Yeah, so why do you have to start at 3 a.m?
Well, the process in which we choose to make our bread with is, you know, we're based really as a sourdough bakery, using our sourdough cultures to make the bread rise. And doing that, it's a much slower process. It's something that kind of, I get told quite a lot at the moment that it's, you know, I'll do it because it's cool, or, you know, it's in fashion. Well, yes, that might be the case, but it's also because it's much better for you. It has better digestibility. There's so many reasons for doing it that it's not just because it's in vogue.
Yeah, it's presumably because it's the right way to make bread. But let's start there, because a lot of people listen will have no idea. We all see the word sourdough, we all hear it, sourdough pizza bases and all this kind of stuff. Do you want to just go run through the difference between your average Joe Bloggs go into the shop and buy a loaf of bread and a proper sourdough? What's the actual difference?
Well, so a proper sourdough loaf will be leavened, will be risen with a sourdough culture, which is just flour and water, given a time to ferment. The lactobacilli, the bacteria within there, naturally occurring yeast, will have a certain balance to them, and that will make the bread rise. It will give it distinctive sour flavour, and that's really what a true sourdough is. And it can't be really, you know, knocked out in a couple of hours. It does take time. Our signature loaf here, it's about 36 hours from start to finish. It takes a long old time, but for that you do get the flavour, you do get the texture. It is a weighty loaf of bread. A true sourdough will be that. Whereas if you use baker's yeast, and I don't really have anything against baker's yeast, we use it in some of our products, but it should be used in the right way. There are lots of recipes where, you know, you chuck in a couple of sachets of dried yeast and you get a very instant rise, but actually you don't get any benefit from that. There's no nutritional benefit, you know, no flavour to that. And so the sourdough culture will give you that. And there's one of the weird things, there's no actual legislation on what you can and can't call sourdough. So we could nip over to Sainsbury's, buy their sourdough ball or whatever they want to call it, and it has no sourdough culture in there. It'll have some sourdough flavouring, usually vinegar, and they'll knock it out for, you know, £3 a loaf. Whereas,
does that irritate you by any chance?
Does it sound like it?
Well, I'm just, you know, no, because I'm just thinking. So this replicates the conversation I've had. I've had it with boutique hotel, and how do you define boutique? How do you define craft beer? In every sector,
I think
somebody notices
craft gin. It was mentioned as well.
Craft gin, and that's kind of, again, the point of having these conversations. If people would just ask the questions, because I ask whether it pisses you off. It pisses me off. Because it just, like you said, most people won't look into the difference and why, and the fact that you've had to get up at 2 or whatever to be in there at 3 to do it properly.
I think there just needs to be a bit of integrity about it, really, and I don't think having a loaf on a supermarket shelf that calls itself a sourdough, but actually it's been made in an hour and 6 minutes in a Chorley wood process, which is how a lot of supermarket bread is made. And you think, well, actually, that isn't any good for anyone.
Yep.
And it isn't doing what it claims to do, and not that it necessarily claims to do something, but it.
So as well as being faster, it loses some of its nutritional quality, as well as flavour.
And I mean, I don't want to get into a chat about gluten too early, because it's.
You don't want to speak to her. Is that coming?
Well, I just get a little bit ranty. I would imagine it's being gluten-free is a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Very popular at the moment to say you're gluten-free, but it's.
Don't worry, you can go early. Just you've started.
Yeah, I've started now. So it's The problem I have with people who say they're gluten intolerant is that actually I think they're intolerant to the processes of the product they're eating. If it's not been made in the correct way or has been made in a way that speeds it up dramatically, so you can get your sliced white loaf, you screw it up into a ball and it returns to more like a dough-like substance. Whereas you get a slice of proper sourdough, you screw that up into a ball, and it then unravels into its baked form. And I think when you're eating that, no wonder you can eat your crap bread and feel bloated and feel a whole number of symptoms. Because actually, 40, 50 years ago, we changed the bread making process entirely on the whole. And no wonder there's a spike in people saying that they're gluten intolerant. And that... there are people who do suffer from, celiac disease and things like that. And our baker Mark, his partner and daughter, they're both celiacs, which I find mad. That, he is a baker, works with wheat, gets covered in it, and then has to go home and can't have any bread in the house.
You get hosed down. In
I think he must do. But yeah, it's just a very popular question as to what gluten-free bread do you do? It's like, well, we don't, because it's an open kitchen and we couldn't guarantee it, and I don't think it's really bread. I think bread's very much based on
so some products are really easy to do gluten free. So I've chatted with Honey Buns around her cakes and actually using the kind of ground almonds and stuff like that instead of flour.
Exactly that, yeah.
But that's actually arguably enhancing quality. The objective there wasn't get rid of the gluten. The objective was do a richer, more decadent cake. But I do agree 100% is that you just want to say to people, just unless you're celiac, just try it, because just buy better. Eat less, eat better.
I think if you eat something that's made properly, a properly made sourdough loaf that's been fermented for a proper amount of time, people will more often than not find that they can digest it. After all, sourdough bread was first made 6,000 years ago by the Egyptians, so why now is it the root of all evil and nobody can digest it? I think it's the bastardisation of the process.
Seems odd. So were we making bread? So again, knowing the difference, I suppose, between the two styles of bread, but UK based, were we making bread in more of that traditional sense ourselves? If you go back 100 years, rather than when we made the change 50, 60 years, is sourdough a British thing for a long time, or did it come over late?
It's kind of there's obviously French baking, French bread has always had a very good history of it, and I think with Britain, a lot of things kind of passed us by, and for a variety of reasons. I think World War II and rationing and things like that, where people were told to grow quickly and produce masses, and you can kind of see why it all happened. But so the emergence of baker's yeast would have really exploded then, and people would have realised that they can make something that was, a lot cheaper and a lot quicker than a sourdough process. So I do think sort of that style of baking really was more prominent here. Whereas in France, not so much. It was more, a bit more authentic. San Francisco's always been renowned as, a great place for sourdough. It's why Marks and Spencer will have their San Francisco sourdough, which is just in some ways a bit of a marketing gimmick, but it's because it's renowned for its bread. But I think it has passed us by, and also sort of some of the grains and some of the flours, like rye breads, aren't that popular really in the UK, whereas on the continent, Scandinavia, Germany, Russia, they're everywhere, and they develop gluten, but it develops differently, so it's again a bit easier on the digestive system. The flavour's amazing, like an open sandwich on rye. It's just incredible, but I think it just has passed us by.
And has that better nutritional content as well, because you keep the wheat germ in.
Exactly.
The bits that are good for you from the grains.
So I do just think that our sort of food culture just got affected by by rationing and that sort of.
Which comes back to what you were saying earlier about, it's in vogue and is this just a fashion, I suppose, I do think it's, we're just getting back to that authenticity. And it seems to be the same in lots of industries. I was chatting to Simon from Hackney about wine a couple of weeks ago and about how we missed, we were never very good at wine. And why was that? Because actually, we've got the same kind of soil as you've got in the Champagne region. Our climate clearly has an impact, but we are now learning, and not only are we learning, we're innovating, and where we're not buried in the tradition of say France, we're actually innovating really fast and we're becoming really good at stuff. So across multiple areas, it does seem that we are now having a bit of a food revolution.
Yeah, and which is a wonderful thing to sort of see going on, and there are a lot of people doing, like you say, amazing things, and it's I think that not having that tradition so sort of ingrained in you is a good thing, that you've got anyone just go, I'm going to give that a go.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, even William Curley from the chocolatier that I was chatting to, we mentioned before we started this, said with regard to being inventive with chocolate flavours, he uses some really interesting flavours like rosemary, honey, lavender, thyme, whatever they might be. But if he was in a a really traditional Brussels village,
frowned upon.
Yeah, they'd be like, well, what is this? It's like, this isn't actual chocolate. Whereas in England, and particularly I guess in London, you can just be a lot more experimental, because we seem to now be willing to try different stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's a great thing to see. And moving from London down here, I was a bit sort of unsure as to what I'd find.
Yeah, well, that's a nice little link, actually. So you've done my job for me. So I let you rant early. I got that out of your system. So I want to go back. Yeah. What was the trigger then? So you're in E5. You've been this amazing journey. You've learned all of this stuff, presumably, because I'm guessing you didn't know about the 6,000-year-old history of sourdough before E5.
Yeah, no, I sort of learned everything when I was there, really.
And then something happens where you think, right, I'm going to get out of the city. What was the trigger?
I'd just done 8 or 9 years in London, and it just gets to that point. I think you either are there for the long haul, or it's like, actually, I think I'm done now.
Okay, because you're from Ringwood originally.
Yeah, grew up here, and when I started making bread at E5, I always thought this Ringwood would definitely have a market for it, and mostly based on the fact that there's a Waitrose around the corner. Right, if there's a Waitrose, you're probably all right.
Yeah, you're safe.
And so I had always had this idea. I'd love to do it myself. I'd love to give it a go. And then, was very fortunate that had someone sort of make me an offer that I couldn't refuse in terms of finance, and then it's just trying to sort of find
as spot. In somebody offered to lend you some money?
Yeah, and it's just trying to find a spot. So
this is somebody who believed in your
very much so, and it was then trying to sort of, which in some ways was great, because I didn't actually write a business plan. Yeah. And in some ways that's brilliant. It hasn't held me back, because you kind of, if you've got a business plan, you can get a bit too focused on that, and you have to do it by...
You've justified that to yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely massively.
But you're right. But
so it was just winging it, for want of a better word. Yeah. I saw this shop, and had been empty for about 3 years. But as soon as I saw it, I kind of pictured exactly how I wanted it, where it's sort of split into three, where it used to be 3 old shops. And then years ago, it got knocked into one large one. I could see the division between 2/3 baking space, 1/3 retail. So we could have a small little cafe. And I knew that my oven would fit in a recess next to sort of a little cupboard. And it just kind of all made sense to me. So it's like, right, well, that's the shop. And
it's very visual, isn't it? You literally, everything you can see the bread made, either from outside in the windows or when you're sat in the cafe.
Yeah, very much so. And at E5, they're in long, thin railway arches, and there was a cafe at the front, and then you could see, if you looked past everything, you could see people making and working away. And at E5, to use the toilet, you had to walk through the baking area, everything. It was always, I found quite bizarre, but one day I was rolling out some baguettes, and this lady with her child stopped and just were watching me for about 5 minutes, and it was just in complete silence, and I was just, I don't know, probably out of awkwardness, I just said, why are you watching me? What's interesting about this? And they said, well, I've never seen someone shape a baguette before. That's wonderful. Yeah. And from that point, I then just thought, well, actually, you don't see that. And so if you can, you have open kitchens in restaurants or whatever, and if you can make it open and see people sort of can see what you're doing and see that you're only using flour, water, and a bit of salt. There's no additives going in there. Nothing's hidden behind a door. Actually, that is interesting. And so 3 years on, we'll have people sat there. I was making bread earlier, and a couple came and sat down and said, "Oh, this is great. We can watch what's going on."
Yeah.
It's quite odd when you're working, but
yeah, true. Well, I expect you forget. You've also got to remember, so in the restaurant scene, open plan kitchens are dangerous because they're often very hot, very angry chefs swearing at each other in service.
You get that in a bakery as well.
Okay, 3 a.m.'s all right. I suppose you just got to remember when the customers have arrived. And you're
one of my bakers, Pippa, thought I had Tourette's that only lasted until about 8 a.m. when we opened.
And then you were cured.
And then apparently I don't swear after that. But
well done.
Yeah.
So most food businesses fail in their first 24 months. How was the first 24 months for you? Did you open the doors and were you instantaneously as you are now? Were you cafe and bakery?
It kind of looked pretty similar to what we are now, albeit we now have staff and we didn't at the start. It was just a case of
just you,
me and my partner at the time. And we had a few people help us out. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it in Ringwood is that I've got a lot of family and friends still here, and it kind of helps you. You feel like you've got a
somebody will buy
network.
something, and Mum will buy a loaf.
Yeah.
One day.
Mum buy some bread. Yeah, definitely. And and that was that. And it was. I just thought I've got the support network, so that's going to help. And we had a few people help out, volunteers, a few sort of young 16-year-olds behind the till on a Saturday and whatnot. And I mean, the first day I hadn't really planned about customers. I hadn't really thought about that dynamic. And I thought, I'll open the door at 8 o'clock and somebody will walk in at some point and buy a loaf of bread. The weird thing is that somebody came in at 5 a.m. and was just like, have you got anything ready yet?
No, and, on day one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it kind of took...
Were they on the way to Waitrose?
yeah. But it was... And he's come back in on the same day. 'Cause it's the same... The day we opened was on Ringwood Carnival, which is a thing they do in September every year. And he comes back every year for this carnival because of family connections. And he comes in at about 5 a.m. every day, or every carnival day. And it's bizarre, but it kind of took that first transaction, the gloss of that excitement out of it. But I didn't mind it because it was
amazing.
It just got the ball rolling. And it's changed quite a bit in the first 2 years now. Year 3 is I've got a small army of people working. And
so was the response was good? Ringwood was ready? Did you get people coming in going, what the hell are you? I don't know. What was the competition like? Are there many bakeries already here?
There are some sort of craft bakeries, that sort of traditional like your tinned cottage loaf, that kind of thing, but not doing what we're doing. One of the questions that we got a lot at the start was why we didn't make white bread. Where actually, the thing is that we're using a white flour that's milled down in Shaftesbury by a chap called Michael Stoke, and it's a stone ground organic white flour, and so it's actually quite creamy in colour. So it doesn't look this brilliant white that you're kind of told is white flour, whereas actually that's been bleached, and this is just organic and stone ground. It's much better for you. Nothing's has to be added back into it, and that was quite a hard sort of sell to start with. But there were enough people who were just wanting something different. The options of what were in Waitrose and Sainsbury's, which were the two supermarkets in the town, were non-existent really, and so people were just up for coming in and giving it a go.
Amazing. Michael Stoke I've met actually, so he'll be probably, by the time this goes out, there'll be a podcast. So if anybody's listening who wants to go and listen to Michael, then
I look forward to it.
It'll be there. I think
it's
a couple of weeks away. But yeah, it's a cool. I think there's been a mill there. I remember something like, it was definitely over 1,000. I can't remember if it was 1,000 or 5,000 years in that particular location.
It's amazing. Incredible. I had to go there the other day. We ran out of flour due to a bit of a mishap in the ordering by myself. But so I had to nip over to Shaftesbury, fill the van up, and then come back. And he gave me a tour of the mill, and it's just a wonderful thing to see, because it's not often you'll see a stone ground water mill.
And he's I use the word eccentric, but his ability to kind of mix old and new engineering, because he comes from an engineering background. He's got old wooden kind of sieves mixed in with new stuff he's made. Then you've got the actual stone grinder itself. Fascinating, but really good quality product, I think. So I've been told so many times and had this conversation with chefs, the key thing in our industry is start with really, really good ingredients.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to swear too much on this, but basically don't cock them up. Let's use that word instead.
Yeah.
But start with something really good, and then our job's just to tweak those ingredients and send them out the other door. So people like Michael provide something good for you.
One of the things that really triggered my imagination was within bread was you're starting with something that is flour and water and salt, very basic ingredients, and you can create some amazing flavours and amazing things with just those things, and sort of the alchemy of it. Just still now, I just think about it and you think the potential to different flavours and things is it's quite exciting, really. I mean, it's probably a bit sad.
No. I think it's and weird that it can be so different. So many times.
Just make a few small changes to how you're fermenting something, how you're proving something, and you can get a whole host of different flavours. How you're baking something. It's kind of something that within the first 3 years of the business, I've not done much experimenting of playing with stuff, because you're kind of in the throes of just the daily grind, and now it's sort of beginning to find pockets of time where we've got a really solid team now that, they have great ideas. So I just want them to experiment as much as they can. When I've got time, I'll do bits and bobs, and it's just a good way to spend your days, really.
Was it difficult to get consistency in those early days then, because of the, like you say, the chemistry that's involved and the fact it can be so different?
Yeah, but I think it does have moments where something's not fermenting as you think it would. There's slight sort of variance in the flour for whatever reason, and it does take a bit of figuring out. But I felt that 6 years at E5 really stood me in good stead to deal with things, and stuff just happens, and if you burn a whole 18 loaves of bread in one go, you just have to hold your hand up and say that was my fault. I'm sorry, we've not got any bread today. Yeah. And people will react to that and have a bit of a laugh and, laugh at you. You just have to take it on the chin.
And I love that. That's when you're close to your supply chain. I have this debate sometimes with people coming into the restaurant who say, there's no fish on your specials tonight. And you kind of go, have you looked out the window?
Yeah.
It's been blowing a 4, 7 or 8 for the last 4 days. The boats haven't gone out. That's what happens in a real restaurant. The boats haven't gone out. There are no fish. Like, they haven't landed any fish. So we haven't got any. And that's kind of the human element of our food chain is the bit we've lost with this fact we can get
there's not that
asparagus 365 days a year. We forget now that actually that's had to be grown around the globe at different times. But anyway, I'll start a rant if we start off on that one.
It's easily done.
So one of the key things then, the difference this time is you're an employer rather than an employee, and you've had to recruit a team. How's the actual business side? How did it feel when you first had to start bringing people in and creating this team?
How did it first feel? A relief.
It's just there's somebody else.
Yeah, when I first started, I think 7 months of doing 100 hours a week was just brutal. And I knew that it was never going to be 40-hour weeks, and it's never going to be that, because
if you start at 3 a.m, there's too many hours in the day. You're never going to get it down.
But no, I've been really, really lucky, to be honest. I don't think we've really employed someone that's not turned out great and who's brought something to the business. Like the bakers are all really, really solid. We've got a really good mix of experience. Some have worked at a few bakeries in London. Mark, I mentioned him earlier. He's baked in Salisbury. We've got a girl who does a bit of part-time work with us. So she comes and shapes bread maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but she's actually a potter in Boscombe.
Oh, really?
Home Throne Studios is what she's called, and it's absolutely amazing. And she just brings a really nice dynamic that just, you never have a crap day when she's just.
Really? I suppose there's a similar skill set there, but shaping bread, shaping pots.
I keep on threatening her that I will go and show her how it's done on the potter's wheel, but I'll be honest, it won't end well. I think there's a lot more skill involved in what she's doing.
So these I'm going off on a tangent here, but these are handmade pots that she then sells directly to the public, or
I think she does it through a website at markets.
I live in Boscombe, so I'm interested. I'm going to be popping in and seeing
Factory Studios. It's it's really, really good. They're really nice things, and she's I've tasked her with making some cake stands for us here, but I think they're quite problematic. So
Really?
I try not to ask her too much how she's getting on with them.
Don't break the team.
Yeah.
So despite your admitted lack of writing things down and lack of having a plan and a structure, you've been lucky. Customers came in, they bought stuff. Yeah. You've recruited a team. That's gone well. Mm-hmm. And then you accidentally opened another site in Southbourne. How the hell did that happen? Well, you decided you had too much time in your hands and you wanted to get up to 2 instead of 3.
Yeah. I think. How did that happen? Yeah.
Why?
We were very lucky. There's a wonderful restaurant in Southbourne called the House, and every Saturday, James, who runs that, invited us down to sell some bread outside his restaurant on a Saturday morning. So it'd usually be Mark. He would fill the van up of bread, bomb it down to Southbourne, set up a very sort of ad hoc market stall type of thing outside their restaurant, and then just flog bread on the street really for 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday morning. And we built up a really good sort of regular trade, and Southbourne just had a very good feel for us that there's some, a few places we supply are already there. And so it was, when I first visited there, when I moved back, it made me feel like I was in London again. I don't know why. It just kind of...
Yeah, Southbourne's a funny place. I know James and the Larder House well. We worked together for a couple of years, but I love what James has created. But
it just felt there was just a certain thing, and I was I like this. I think it would work, and it was then just sort of timing as to did I really want to do it? So I kind of put it off and ignored that sort of thing that was just that wanting to do it, and then a few things happened in sort of personal life and whatnot, and then I just thought, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's find somewhere. Let's find something small that is manageable, that won't take too much time. And we managed to find a little shop. So everything's still made in Ringwood, and we take it down there on every morning. Got a little team in there, and they sell it from there, and it works well for us really. It's a kind of, although I didn't have a business plan, I didn't write anything down, I always had an idea of how I thought it might go. And it isn't that's actually what we've ended up doing, but it just it's made me just look at it slightly differently, that having a one main central baking unit, is that a better thing than having a couple of smaller baking units that then sort of swap the products over, so you make bread in one and pastries in the other, and A delivers to B and B to A, and that's kind of how I first thought about it. But
could you put a wood oven in the one in Southbourne? Did you? Is that still there?
Yeah, that is still there. Yeah, but it's not been fired yet.
Why?
That little thing called time.
Okay, fine.
Finding the time to do it. It was a case that we were fitting it out, and we do pizza nights here at the Ringwood site once a month, and they're really popular and go down really well. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to do some there, so let's put a pizza oven in when we start, and then at some point we'll find time. It's been nearly a year now and we've not found that yet. So
anything that starts with the word night must be a challenge. What time do you go to bed?
10 o'clock.
Really?
Yeah, I just survive on very little
4 hours sleep
and a lot of caffeine.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's
and
the coffees.
When you're doing something you enjoy, it doesn't actually...
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't feel like I work.
No, but if you start doing pizza nights that finish at 12, that would be the end.
Oh no! Well, the pizza nights we do here.
But you say nights, that's 4 p.m. Or?
No, it starts at 5:30 and is usually done by about 8:30.
Okay.
People just come down. It's a very short.
It's a short
burst, but I think the last one we knocked out about 140 odd pizzas. And
wow,
it's just an insane thing to do, and we're already knackered on a Thursday, and we got the rest of the weekend ahead of us, but it's good fun.
It's weird, isn't it, how we get sucked into this addiction of
and
creation.
I think there probably is a bit of, you can kind of do get a bit addicted to it. You don't, when you start to stop, you go, well, I've got this free time now, we should really be doing something else, and what can we fill that with? And
yeah, if you can bake it, then
start
there.
Yeah,
I have a wood-fired oven down on the beaches.
And
that pumps out some pizzas, and it's bonkers. It's good fun, but it's insane because in the summer, it's just nuts. We can do 400 or 500 pizzas a day in the summer, and then 4 or 5 a day in the winter. So it's another ridiculous business.
It's a bit of a balancing act.
But we haven't got time to talk about that because one of the things that I want to start about, so we went off on a little bit of a bread tangent, but I just want to go back to what's it called? It's the starter dough, basically. So the whole thing with sourdough, getting a bit geeky again for a minute, is this starter dough, which often is like, hundreds of years old. Can you just talk to me?
Yeah,
so most people eating something that's hundreds of years old, they're going to assume they're going to die. So just take me through how this works.
So it's just it's a culture. Sourdough is based on a culture, and it's just keeping it alive and feeding it, adding flour and mortar to it on a fairly regular basis will do that.
So if somebody wants to do this at home, literally, it's flour and water.
Yeah. So if you want to create a sourdough starter, it is a case of mixing flour and water together. You could do it in a kiln, a jar, or a Tupperware pot, whatever you fancy. Mix it up, leave it for 24 hours at room temperature. Come back to it. There might be a bubble or two on the surface, probably not at this stage. Either way, add flour and water to it again, equal parts. Mix it up, leave it at room temperature again. We're leaving it at room temperature because that's sort of really good fermentation temperature for bread. Leave it for 24 hours, come back to it. Same process, add a bit more flour, a bit more water, mix it up. And you do this for about 4 or 5 days, and day on day you'll begin to see more and more bubbles appearing on the surface. And that's these naturally occurring yeasts that are in the flour on our hands. Some people put some dried fruit, some raisins, something like that in their starter to activate the fermentation. To be honest, I've never bothered. I've just used good organic wholemeal flour,
It's got
away
the
you
stuff
go.
in it to go. And these are bacteria fundamentally feeding on this process.
Yeah, these naturally occurring yeast that are everywhere, and that's it.
Right.
So
and then when you start to turn that into bread, you just take a bit of it at a time.
Essentially, we take a bit of our starter, bulk it up, and that gets left overnight, and that bulked up mixture is then put into the final dough. And so I teach these classes, and what we do on a day-to-day basis here, when we make a couple of hundred loaves, you can scale that down to a single loaf and do it in your kitchen at home, and it works exactly the same. There's a few differences in terms of baking. Not everybody's got a big deck oven in their kitchen, but you can turn a little domestic oven into something suitable for baking a single loaf of bread. Baking loaves of bread in cast iron pots works incredibly well. So I show people that, and it's something that is very easily replicated, and it is just all based on the fermentation of your starter.
So you've made that sound very simple, but some of these starter cultures go back literally hundreds of years.
So I've got two here. So I have a wheat one, which I created when I started the bakery here. So that's 3 and a bit years old. And then I have a rye starter, which was given to myself and a few of the other guys at E5 Bakehouse. A customer said, "This is my grandmother's. Would you guys like some?" And always wanting something for free, we've absolutely pass it over, and still got some here. So
amazing. And what does that, when you say, would you like? So is this a little jar? How does that?
Yeah. So we could have a little jar. I think it depends on
when they came into E5 though and gave you a bit.
Yeah, so it would have just been a couple of 100 grams.
Right, very much.
And at home, that's what you keep. Here, depending on how you do it, every bakery has their own little tweaks. But yeah, it's.
And had that one been to Lapland or something? Was that?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Her grandmother lived in Lapland, created it in Lapland, and then it sort of travelled to London, to Hackney, and it's been
I love that. I love that. I don't know if there's any point to it, but it's just
some people get very attached to it.
Great.
I mean,
story,
it's been diluted quite a lot since its original.
No reindeer left in it.
No. So yeah, it's a hell of a good story. So.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it?
People do get attached to where their starter came from and how old it is, but
does it make any difference?
It's kind of down to opinion as well. So you can read lots of different things, and everybody has a different opinion. Some people will say that they will create a new starter every 6 weeks. Seems like a bit more effort, so I've never bothered.
Right.
But then other people will advertise the fact that their starter is 100 years old.
Right, that seems
contradictory
that there's two camps.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it just depends on what side of the fence you fall. And for me, I think it's a good story. There will obviously be an element of the original bacteria that started the culture in your starter, but it will have been diluted a lot, and will it take on characteristics of the flour and the environment in which you're working as much as it will its original form? It's, you know, it is up for debate, and I don't know. I think I changed my idea as to which way I fall.
Okay. Is there a trade in starters? Can you go to places and kind of buy starters?
Yeah, well, I mean,
you know, with random histories that people use as part of the marketing
Yeah,
and stuff,
people will buy a San Francisco sourdough starter on the internet that will come in a little dried out powder, and they will then, you know, add it to flour and water, and that will be their sourdough starter. But it just seems a bit bizarre to me when you can just start it with flour and water.
You're not basically going to cut into that loaf and go, oh wow, look, that's a Californian sourdough or whatever. You're not going to notice.
I'd be
that
surprised if somebody
like
would be able to sort of pinpoint that. You know, I think as a baker we have a job to give it out, really. I think if somebody wants some sourdough starter, pop into the bakery, and we've always got a lot kicking around, so we're happy to give, you know.
You're lucky this isn't Tim Ferriss podcast where there'd be like, you know, 10 million people listening to this going, great, I'm on my way to Ringwood for some free Lapland starter.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll probably be able to manage the demand.
We won't get a rush. But
you might in about 2 years when somebody listens to this, and let me know.
But I still think it's something that bakers should do. Give, you know, a bit of sourdough starter you can't really attach much of a price to that, and I think the more people baking bread at home, the better. If you're eating good bread, then actually, you know, I'd like to think that we're making bread that can't be repeated on a daily basis at home, really, just because when you've got, you know, your normal life carries on, it's very difficult to be making a loaf of bread a day or whatever it is you eat. So, you know, as long as people are still coming in and buying the occasional loaf off us, we'd be fine. And but the more people baking at home, the better. I think it's only a good thing for us, really.
Yeah, I think it gets people more interested. What you want them to do, presumably, is stop eating crap bread, make your own bread, or come out and buy decent bread.
And know what you're putting in your bread. Like, we put flour, water, and salt, and people can watch what we're doing and what we're putting in the dough. It always makes me. I always think it's funny about how you could get these old bakeries that are behind a door, and you think, what's going on back there then?
Yeah, opening sachets of quick yeast.
And you hear about people who have worked in supermarket bakeries, and they get everything. You know, you get a sack of flour, so they'll weigh the flour into the mixer, weigh the water, and then you get an orange bag, and that's got everything in there, from your emulsifiers to your dough improvers, all those different E numbers, all sorts of different things that don't need to be in there.
And what's their objective? That's speed and consistency.
Consistency, I would have thought, and speed. They want to be able to knock stuff out quickly, and whereas actually we're all about trying to slow it down.
Yeah, that's where the name comes from, is it? 24.
No, that's just the postcode.
Oh,
needed to think of a name for the bakery, and it's. I thought it was a bit of a nod to E5 Bakehouse where I started. The postcode's BH24, so Bakehouse 24. That kind of works.
But you didn't rename Southbourne?
No, it was. I did have a think about should we still call it Bakehouse 24, but it's BH5. I was like, I'll just call it Bakehouse 24. That's easy then.
Job done.
We had, we had all the window graphics, all the logos already done, so it's like, sod it, that'll do.
Yeah, no, perfect. Have you noticed much of a change? So you've been involved now, it's a decade pretty much, I suppose. Has there been a big change competition-wise? Are a lot more people doing this? Are these kind of micro bakeries opening up more?
At E5, we were one of the. There were a few good sourdough bakeries, but in the little area where we were in Hackney, we were sort of the first bakery, and then by the time I left, I think there was maybe 5 bakeries within probably a mile radius, all doing very similar things, and that was in 6 years, which I think is crazy. Down here, there's not quite as many, but there are a few. I think it's always, you have to champion them. There's a great place up in Boscombe, sort of towards Folkestone, called M's Bakery. I think they do some great stuff in there. A good place over in Southampton. There are more things happening. It's obviously a bit slower outside of London, but it's not a bad thing. And for me, I think competition's a good thing. I've never seen competition as a negative. If it makes you look at what you're doing and go, well, I need to improve what I'm doing because their stuff's bloody brilliant, great. how's that a bad thing? Yeah, so perhaps not if they opened next door, but it's good to keep you on your toes.
Yeah. When I was chatting to Michael Stokes, who you mentioned earlier as well, so he's been, I don't know, milling, I can't remember how long it was, but let's say 30 years at least. So he's seen real changes in trends and in cycles multiple times, I suppose, between, good bread, bad bread, fads, things come along. What's your thought? And you mentioned earlier about whether this is a fashion. What's your thoughts on the longevity? Where's this going to go in the next 10 years? Is there room to be to carry on being inventive? Is this going to be short-term, long-term?
Well, I'd like to think it's here to stay. I might be able to spot a bother if it's not.
You're committed.
Yeah, I think it has to be, because why would you, having found something that's better for you and is a better product, although it comes with a little price premium, why would you then go, actually, I'm going to go back to my white sliced? I mean, yeah, it would be madness for it to not, in my opinion. Where would it go next? I don't. I'd like to think, actually. And there's a few people who I've worked with from E5 who have gone on to set up bakeries, and it's something that I'm going to start to do here now that we're getting a bit more time, and is it really sort of looking towards using UK grain. So a lot of the wheat that we will be milling, or a lot of the flour that we'll be using rather, isn't UK grain. So all our wholemeal is UK, grown in the UK, but our white flour will be sort of a mix of UK grain and supplemented from stuff grown elsewhere, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Canada, wherever the grain merchant sources it from. And that seems...
Is that based on cost, or are they trying to blend grains for different reasons?
A few different reasons, but, historically we're told that the UK doesn't have good climatic conditions for growing wheat, that you can't get high protein content. But actually, that's not true. The grain you grow in the UK is much softer, so it's harder to work with. You can't put it through big commercial mixers. Whereas actually, we don't want to be putting it through a big commercial mixer. We want it to be a smaller quantity, smaller batch size. So I want to look to start to move over our grain to solely a UK grain. I need to talk to Michael about that. I know that he does mill some, and it's just sort of, for him, I would imagine it's demand. If there's not enough demand for it, then commercially, is it worth him doing? So the last time I spoke to him, he was milling some, so it's the next step really, and it's where I'd like the bakery to look at. There are lots of places that are doing it, and it's what was going on at E5 as I was leaving. They're growing their own wheat and milling it on site. Yeah, and it
seems to be the trajectory of food at the moment. And again, you don't know if you're just in that niche because we're in that industry, but this desire to minimise environmental impact, food miles, not to make stuff travel unnecessarily, but also story, I suppose. Yeah, it would feel like a natural kind of next step. I know that you've heard of the company Hobmadods, but I was reading about all the kind of lentils and then bringing back some of the kind of more unusual grains, and actually this I was to say quest, but actually this nigh on necessity that we're going to need to change our diet. There's been a lot in the last few months from the World Health Organization, and I forget the names of the groups, but basically people looking at how are we going to feed the planet. We were touched on earlier about Helen Browning and the podcast I did with her around organics, and actually...
Which was brilliant.
Thank
really
you.
Enjoyed
Yeah, good. Yeah, me too. I learned so much. But yeah, how are we going to feed 10 billion people on planet Earth without screwing it up? And actually getting back to more kind of grains and more plants rather than more meat seems to be just... have this kind of common sense consensus now that needs to be the way. So that would make me think that the future of people who are making really good, nutritious products using local grains, that's got to be a good sign, because it's better to eat the grains than to eat the cow from a kind of efficiency perspective, let alone any other take on stuff.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's just how, for me, it interests me, how's it going to change for the masses. It's very easy to be in a bit of a bubble, certainly when you are if you're in London, you're in a bit of a London bubble, and you kind of think that everyone outside of London is doing exactly the same. Actually, that's not really the case. Or if you're in a bubble and you talk to certain people about certain things, you can be a little bit closed. How's it going to change how can you change it for the people who who do want the ease of going to the supermarket not every day, once a week, and buying things online. How can you affect their buying habits and their eating habits?
You've not nailed that yet. I was just hoping you were going to give the answer, and I was going, that's really useful. Thank you very much. I have the same thing, trying to keep people out of harvesters and Weatherspoons and stuff like that, and go, please come to the smaller.
Sometimes you need a cheap pint, and that's fine. But on the whole, we should try and
have both.
Yeah, try and get people to think about what it is that they're buying.
Yeah,
like sort of what you said at the point of the podcast. Actually, if they're buying a burger, think about the people behind that one thing that you're about to eat.
Yeah.
That there's actually a lot of people involved in.
Where you spend your money fundamentally impacts the world we live on. And if we want the world to be beige, spend it all in the big chains and buy crap bread. And if you want the world to be a rainbow and have this diversity and support people like you and the team that you employ, then sometimes walk past the supermarket, pop into your little local bakery. Absolutely. What's your plans for the business going forward then? I know you're anti-plans, but now you've got two. At some point, and I'm the same. I've not had a business plan. I still don't really know what I'm going to do when I'm a grown up.
Yeah.
But do you know what's next? How far ahead have you looked?
Yeah, I'm just playing at being grown up, to be honest.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest. The listening to the podcast, and it's something that we've done it in the bakery a lot, and everyone sort of has dipped in and out of them. And for me, I found it really interesting to hear other people's stories, and in some ways find it reassuring that you all go through a similar struggle, and although there's slight differences, but it's made me kind of look at what I'm doing and how the business is shaped. For me, working 6 or 7 days a week, between 12 and 16 hours a day, it's like, well, that's not necessarily what I got into the business for. I love it and it doesn't bother me at this stage, but it can't go on forever.
It's not sustainable forever.
So, what can I do to change that? And I'm learning to sort of delegate and give people responsibility, and actually it's a great thing because you then see them begin to sort of really take that on, and it's reassuring. You think, well, actually I have got the team behind me to be able to do that, to be a bit more hands-free, and where it will go from now, I don't know. Sometimes I think that we're limited by the space here in Ringwood. We can't, on certain days, make much more than we do at the moment, which isn't a huge amount. So do we need to look at a different baking site? There's lots of different ideas sort of floating around in my head, but depends on what side of the bed I get out on. Depends on what I'm thinking at that given moment.
Do you sell mainly directly to the consumer, or do you do a lot of wholesale or to restaurants?
We've got the two shops. So we sell to retail, but then we've got, I think, maybe about 32 wholesale customers now, and that varies from a little farm shop that might take 5 or 6 loaves once a week, through to cafes and restaurants that take daily deliveries.
Have you got the capacity to bake more? If there's more restaurants and bars out there who need product, can you do it?
I struggle to say no, and I think most people do. And when you actually kind of learn to say no, it actually becomes easier. But we kind of just figure it out. And there are some days where we get our maths horrifically wrong, and we've got about 5 loaves of bread on the shelf, and you think, oh God, we're a bakery with no bread again. But we kind of make sure that our wholesale customers get what they've ordered. So yeah, there's a bit of capacity, but we need to have a bit of a rethink as to how we're structured in here to make more, basically.
Exciting. At least the demand's there, though. It's a much better problem to be in than, oh my God, nobody wants our bread. And what are we going to do, and how are we going to stay afloat? Deciding the trajectory. It's a little bit of I'd like to think a win-win. You go left, it's one solution. You go right, it's one solution.
I think I'm not against just trying something and then holding my hands up and going, well, that didn't work.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's key.
You got to sometimes. Sticking or twisting, it's difficult to know whether it's is now the right time. When we did Southbourne, was it the right time to open a shop? And I thought, well, well, it's either going to work or it's not. Let's just go for it, and hopefully
action always beats intention, and and the paralysis of analysis drives me bonkers. So I think, the difference between so many people who will constantly think about doing stuff. There'll be a lot of people who listen to this podcast and go, should I do it? Should I do it? I've been thinking about it. And sometimes you've just got to start.
You just got to go for it, and just at the end of the day, what's the absolute worst that can happen?
Yeah, everyone's winging it. I think that's the key thing I learned a long time ago. Everyone is winging it. And I was fortunate enough to learn that at sort of 20, whereas some people get to 50.
Yeah.
And once you get like, you don't know how to run whatever your business is going to become yet. You've got no idea. You don't even know what it's going to become. I'm opening a restaurant in about 12 days' time. I don't know how to run it. I know how to run it better than I did 15 years ago when I did the first one.
I believe that you're... opening in 12 days and you're sat here chatting.
That comes back to your thing about, how exciting it is when you can recruit a team around you, and actually they don't want me to meddle in everything anymore. They've worked with me for a number of years, and they're like, will you just bugger off and get out of the office?
And I think, there's always, not always, there's often somebody be able to do what you're trying to do better than you. So actually, why not give them the chance to do that? And you'd be better off for it. And that's...
And if I didn't, then nobody would have heard this amazing story about the crazy dude whose mates were in a band and baked a cake and then ended up here all these years later. But talking about the business side of it, is there any particular advice that you've either heard yourself and gone, that's bollocks, ignore that, or any really good advice where you've gone, that nugget saved my bacon?
I didn't necessarily act on it when somebody said it to me. It's only kind of now that I go, oh, that was actually spot on. It was kind of valuing your time. At the start, I thought, well, I'll try and do everything. That's going to be the cheapest, the easiest way of doing it. If I try and do everything, it just means that some of the stuff doesn't get done. And, paperwork is not my forte. And although we're sat at my desk now pretty much, and it's not too bad.
It's actually very tidy.
I mean, that was a mad half hour ago.
But I am impressed.
It's respectful before Mark turns up. And giving people the chance to do things, not necessarily for you, but sort of, for the business and so you can better use your time.
Yeah. It's a really hard balance to get right, that, and it is the cliche of work on your business, not in your business. But the flip side is, can't use that as an excuse to just delegate everything and not be there in the thick of it, particularly in the early days. There's no part of my business that I've not done, from being the housekeeper to the chef to the barman, and I'm so grateful that I didn't just inherit some cash and buy a restaurant, but I actually kind of I did every job, because now you can articulate with anybody in the business about their job and actually have respect. The amount of respect I've got for my housekeepers and my chefs is huge. So getting that balance right is really challenging. But you're right. At some point you've got to go, right, I need to put my head above the parapet now, above the water, and just look for the future. The thing that I'm at now is that rather than work in your business and work on your business, I'm probably at that stage where I need to have my hands less in the dough and working on the business and doing other things. Yeah. But that's the bit that I enjoy the most, and the reason why I started it. So it's you kind really of have this real, almost daily struggle of, I should probably not be doing this right now. I should have. Yeah, and it carries on, and it's the same in most industries, I think. But I've got so many in my team are the same. They get promoted to the point where they don't like their job anymore, because I used to really love being on the coffee machine on a Sunday morning, getting my ass kicked, being the barista, and now I'm the manager, and I'm sat in the office filling in the rota spreadsheets for next month and filling in the P&L forecast or whatever. And they're like, hey, and you get them to the point where they hate their job. So I guess variety is the key. And,
I'd like to think that I will always have my hands in dough and doing some 3 a.m. starts, not perhaps every day, but I still want to retain some of the baking. Yeah,
hats off to you, because you have, like I say, I've told that story so many times about respect the people behind the scenes and that baker who gets up every morning. And I've never actually interviewed one apart from my own, who also start ridiculously early. But I think people should just appreciate more whenever they tuck into a decent loaf of bread and know that there's a human being behind that who's gone through some immense sacrifice.
Well, I mean, yesterday, not blood, but sweat and tears. Our baker yesterday broke his finger lifting a 25 kilo sack of flour and slipped, and so the last 2 days have just been absolutely madness of, spinning plates and not letting them drop.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
these things happen. And it's
in which case, respect and gratitude to you as well for also sparing the time and taking an hour out of your busy day.
Fortunately, the afternoons are all right for me. They're,
You're really ready for bed.
yeah, not far off.
Cool. So where can people find out more? If they want to buy your bread or they want to follow your story, where do they go?
Come and say hello in either of the shops in Ringwood or Southbourne. The usual social media, Bakehouse 24. We've got a website, which is woefully out of date. That's kind of one of the next projects of updating that. But just the usual places, Instagram, Facebook, those sorts of things.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, look, thank you for sparing the time.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm looking forward to the trouble with doing these podcasts is, right, I'm driving my wife bonkers because I get home at night and I can't help but share some of the stories. But also I'm just becoming even more of a food snob. I've always been pretty bad having a restaurant, but I will do my best, although it will drive her crazy and never eat any, shit bread again. Well, so thanks for the inspiration.
You need a bit of white sliced in your life every now and again. Usually it's with bacon, brown sauce and a hangover.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. Yeah, perfect. Okay, but thank you for the time and I'll see you soon. Cheers, Pete.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it. You have reached the end of another episode of the Humans of Hospitality podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Please go and visit our website, humansofhospitality.co.uk, for the show notes and extra episodes and information. And whilst you're there, don't forget to sign up for our newsletter and to receive free materials all about the humans behind our incredible industry. Lastly, if you could subscribe, rate and review this podcast, you will be massively helping me out and it would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much. We'll be launching another podcast in just 7 days' time. Cheers.